On January 22, 2026, the Hubble Space Telescope captured something that has scientists questioning the laws of physics. An interstellar visitor called 3I Atlas aligned perfectly with Earth and the Sun, revealing a tail pointing directly toward our star instead of away from it. This 62,000-mile-long tail is somehow penetrating through solar wind that should be blowing it in the opposite direction. But that's just one of 18 documented anomalies this object is displaying. Its rotation axis is locked onto the Sun. 3 jets are spaced exactly 120 degrees apart in perfect symmetry, and its brightness suggests it might be producing its own light rather than reflecting sunlight. The statistical probability of its trajectory aligning so precisely with our planetary orbits? 1 in 20,000. Either we're witnessing physics we don't understand, or something far more extraordinary is passing through our cosmic neighborhood. If you want to stay updated on the latest discoveries about the most mysterious object in our solar system, hit that subscribe button now, because what we're about to reveal gets even stranger. This object began showing behaviors that didn't match any comet we've ever studied. Its brightness changed in ways that made no sense. It had a tail pointing toward the Sun instead of away from it. And its path through space was so perfectly aligned with our planetary orbits that some researchers started asking uncomfortable questions. However, the real breakthrough came during that rare cosmic alignment on January 22nd. When 3I Atlas, Earth, and the Sun lined up, the Hubble Space Telescope captured images that revealed something scientists are still trying to explain. So what did they see? First, you need to understand why this alignment was so important. When an object lines up perfectly between Earth and the Sun, we get to see it in what astronomers call its full moon phase. Think of it like this. When you shine a flashlight directly at a mirror, you see the brightest reflection possible. That's essentially what happened with 3I Atlas. Scientists expected to see a normal brightness surge, just sunlight bouncing off ice and rock. But that's not what they got. The images showed something completely different. The object displayed a system of jets shooting out material. Not just 1 or 2 jets like normal comets have, but 4 distinct jets arranged in a very specific pattern. 3 of these jets were mini-jets spaced exactly 100 to 20 degrees apart from each other, perfectly symmetrical, like they were engineered. Yet the 4th jet, the anti-tail, was doing something that defies basic physics. Here's why this is such a big deal. Normal comets have tails that point away from the Sun. That's because solar wind and radiation pressure push dust and gas in the opposite direction. It's one of the most basic rules of how comets work. But 3I Atlas has a prominent tail pointing directly toward the Sun. This tail is hundreds of thousands of miles long. That's about 10 times the diameter of Earth. And it's somehow pushing through the solar wind without being deflected. Scientists have no natural explanation for how this is possible. If the tail was made of normal dust particles, the solar wind would blow it away instantly. If it was made of gas, same problem. So what is it made of that allows it to penetrate through the solar wind, like it doesn't even exist? Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb has been studying this object intensely, and he's published multiple papers asking whether we might be looking at something artificial. However, most scientists still insist it's natural. They just can't explain the details yet. Let's talk about what the data actually shows. The Hubble images from January 22nd revealed something called a brightness profile. This is basically how light is distributed around the object. Normal comets have a certain type of brightness profile. We've studied thousands of them. We know what they're supposed to look like. 3I Atlas doesn't match that pattern. Its brightness profile is much steeper than any solar system comet. And here's where it gets really interesting. This steep profile is consistent with something that's producing its own light rather than just reflecting sunlight. Think about that for a second. If 3I Atlas is actually self-luminous, that changes everything. Because natural objects in space don't just glow on their own unless they're stars or they're radioactive. The object also has an unusually high nickel-to-iron ratio, way higher than any comet we've ever measured. At large distances from the Sun, it was showing nickel levels that were off the charts compared to normal comets. Yet after it passed closest to the Sun, that ratio changed. It started looking more like a normal solar system comet. So how do we explain all of this? There are really only 3 possibilities. Possibility 1, it's a completely natural comet, but it's made of materials we've never encountered before. Maybe it formed in a different stellar environment with different chemistry. The self-illumination could be from radioactive decay of heavy elements. The anti-tail could be made of large dust grains or ice fragments that are heavy enough to resist solar wind. This is what most scientists believe, but even they admit the details don't quite add up. Possibility 2. It's a natural object, but it's doing something we don't understand yet. Maybe there's some exotic physics at play that we haven't discovered. Maybe the anti-tail is made of massive objects that we can't detect individually but appear as a tail when viewed from Earth. This is possible, but it requires us to invent new physics to explain it. However, there's a third possibility that a small group of scientists are seriously considering. What if 3I Atlas isn't entirely natural? Avi Loeb and his team have published peer-reviewed papers analyzing the statistical probability of 3I Atlas's behavior. The odds of an interstellar object randomly aligning its path so close to our ecliptic plane? About 0.2%. The odds of it making close approaches to Mars, Earth, and Jupiter on the same pass? About 0.005%. That's 1 in 20,000. The odds of it reaching its closest approach to the Sun exactly when Earth is on the opposite side, making it impossible for us to observe during that critical phase? Well, that's either an incredible coincidence or evidence of deliberate planning. But here's the part that really makes you think. If 3I Atlas is producing its own light, it would need to generate about 10 gigawatts of power. That's equivalent to several large power plants. For a natural object to maintain that kind of energy output over millions of years of interstellar travel would require either an enormous fuel supply or technology far beyond our current understanding. There's one more detail that hasn't gotten much attention yet. Remember those 3 mini-jets spaced exactly 120 degrees apart? That kind of perfect symmetry is extremely rare in nature. When you see patterns like that, it usually means one of two things. Either there's some underlying physical structure causing it, or it's designed that way. Scientists have tried to explain it with natural processes. Maybe the nucleus of the comet is shaped in a specific way that causes jets to form at those exact angles. Maybe there are 3 active regions on the surface that just happen to be evenly spaced. Yet no one has found a convincing natural mechanism that would create this pattern. What if it came from our own Oort cloud? The Oort cloud is a massive shell of icy objects surrounding our solar system at distances up to 100,000 astronomical units. That's about 6 trillion miles from the Sun. It's so far out that we can barely detect anything there. If 3I Atlas started from the inner edge of the Oort cloud at about 1,000 astronomical units, it would only take about 80 years to reach the inner solar system at its current speed. 80 years. Not millions of years. That's a time frame that works for biological life or even a multi-generational mission. You wouldn't need some kind of immortal alien species or suspended animation technology. You just need a civilization willing to plan ahead. An Oort cloud base would be the perfect spot for observation. It's close enough to watch the inner solar system, but far enough out that we'd never see it. There are billions of icy objects out there to hide among and use for resources. And here's the thing most people don't realize. We're basically blind beyond 20 astronomical units. That's about 1.86 billion miles from the Sun. Our best telescopes can only spot objects about half a mile across at that distance, and only if they're reflecting sunlight. Neptune orbits at 30 astronomical units. Everything beyond that is invisible to us unless it comes closer or makes its own light. There could be hundreds or thousands of objects sitting out there right now at 50 or 100 or 200 astronomical units, and we'd have no idea they exist. Most interstellar objects probably pass through the outer solar system without us ever knowing. We only catch the ones that come close to the Sun. If another civilization wanted to watch us without being detected, they'd park their probes at 50 to 200 astronomical units. Cold, stable, and completely invisible. We'd only spot them if something went wrong, if they wanted to be seen, or if their orbit decayed and brought them closer. That makes 3I Atlas unusual. Came within 0.9 astronomical units of the Sun. That's closer than Earth. Why would it do that? And then there's the timing of the alignment itself. The fact that 3I Atlas performed what could be interpreted as a reverse solar Oberth maneuver exactly when Earth couldn't observe it raises questions. If you were designing a spacecraft to conduct operations while avoiding scrutiny from Earth-based telescopes, this timing would be absolutely perfect. So where does this leave us? The next few months are critical. As 3I Atlas continues its journey through our solar system, we have several more opportunities to observe it. The James Webb Space Telescope is tracking it. The Vera C. Rubin Observatory is watching. Even the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter might get a chance to capture close-up images. Each observation brings us closer to understanding what this object really is. If it's natural, we're learning that interstellar objects can behave in ways we never imagined. That alone would revolutionize our understanding of how planetary systems form and evolve. But if it's not entirely natural, If there's even a small chance that we're looking at evidence of technology from another civilization, then this is the most important discovery in human history. The stakes couldn't be higher. Because if we're being visited by interstellar probes, that means we're not alone. It means there are other civilizations out there capable of traveling between the stars. And it means they're interested in us. Here's what we know for certain. 3I Atlas is unlike anything we've ever seen. The January 22nd alignment revealed behaviors that challenge our understanding of comets. The self-illumination, the anti-tail, the symmetric jets, and the statistically improbable trajectory all point to something extraordinary. Whether it's extraordinary natural physics or extraordinary technology, we're witnessing something that will be studied for decades. The scientific community is divided. Most believe it's natural. A growing minority thinks we need to seriously consider other possibilities. But everyone agrees on one thing: we need more data. And this video is just part of a larger video series about the most mysterious object 3I Atlas. Check the link to the full playlist in the pinned comments so you don't miss any of the discoveries. But there's something I didn't tell you at the start of this video. The CIA has refused to comment on 3I Atlas. When asked through a Freedom of Information Act request, they issued what's called a GLOMAR response. That means they won't confirm or deny whether they have any records about it. Why would an intelligence agency refuse to discuss a space rock? In the next video, we're going to explore what government agencies know about 3I Atlas that they're not telling the public, and why the silence around this object is almost as strange as the object itself. Drop a comment below and let me know your theory. Hit that like button if this video made you think. Subscribe so you don't miss the next update on this story, and share this with someone who needs to know what's really happening in our solar system right now.